Here.
Commissioner Chen.
Here.
Commissioner Ezrin.
Here.
Commissioner Morin. Commissioner Onan. Commissioner Savage.
Here.
Commissioner Stone.
Here.
Thank you. You all have the agenda. Are there any requests for changes or deletions or amendments of any kind? Hearing none, we'll move on to oral communications. I don't see any cards from anyone. So we'll move on from there to approval of the minutes. And we've got several sets of minutes in this package. They're all labeled draft, and some have been reviewed by some of us. I don't think any have been reviewed by all of us. But that doesn't mean we can't accept motions.
I make a motion to approve minutes for November.
Second.
November 14th,
November 14th, yes.
and that's seconded.
I second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 December 12th minutes, anyone want to make a motion on those?
I'll do it. I'd like to make a motion that we approve December 12 minutes.
Second?
I'll second.
Moved and seconded, any comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And then finally, January 9th.
Okay, I'm on a roll, so I'll make a motion to approve January 9th minutes.
Second?
Second.
Comments? All those in favor say aye.
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 All right, all the minutes are approved, and the chair is here. Yes, you are, Otis.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Chair Anand, can you please turn on your microphone? Thank you.
We're down here.
Okay, great. All right, so next on our agenda is the annual review of the Palo Alto Mediation Program. Hello. And just as a reminder, the HRC does oversee the Palo Alto Mediation Program, and there is a mandatory response ordinance in the city involving landlords being required to respond to tenant complaints about certain things. But I'm going to let our wonderful case manager, Paul A. Bear, Diane and Jill, who are the co-chairs this year, explain all that to us in their report, which was included in the packet. So would you like to come up and present? And I think you need to speak into your microphone. Oh, you have them here? Okay, great. Whew. Sorry, Lord. Thank you.
Okay. So, good evening. Thanks for seeing us tonight. So each year, the Palo Alto Mediation Program provides an overview of the mandatory response program to the HRC, and this is the 12th year of the MRP program. So the program covers a set of landlord-tenant disputes, including rental increases, repairs, maintenance, privacy concerns, and security deposits. So that's kind of the range of what we look at with the MRP. And the process that we've developed is a two-stage process, one where we try and do conciliation on the phone between the tenant and the landlord to see if we can get an agreement between them. And if that's not successful, then both parties are required to attend a mediation. And the other thing about the ordinance is it requires the landlords to include information on their lease about the program and to register their property with the city. And I think that really, really helps because it really helps both tenants and landlords know that their mediation program is available to both sides. So it's a very good way to broadcast that there is that opportunity for them. In 2009, the ordinance was strengthened so that any rent increase notice that does not include the MRP notice is invalid and must be reissued. So we've had some of those where people suddenly realized that their lease didn't include that, and so the rent increase had to be addressed through that. And if the MRP notice is not included, then if there is an eviction, then it is a defense against the eviction for not paying the rent increase or not paying the rent increase. So it really is, it is a good strength both for the tenants and the landlord to have the program in place. So in 2013, we received a total of 305 tenant-landlord calls, and we opened 9 MRP cases in 2013. And when we talk about an MRP case, we usually, first of all, request that either the landlord or the tenant, whoever's calling us, do it as a voluntary mediation, because we just feel that if both people voluntarily agree to come to the mediation, then it's a stronger mediation, and it's much likelier to come to an agreement when both people voluntarily come. If they did not come voluntarily, then we follow the MRP procedures, and it goes into an MRP case. The largest number of cases this year have involved maintenance and privacy issues, which the privacy issues also relate usually to maintenance, people having to get the 24-hour notice before they come into the apartment. We're sort of seeing that this is a slight change of attitude of tenants who are paying the higher rents, are requiring that the maintenance is kept up and not willing to just sort of ignore it to keep, relations good. So, when rents were lower, people were wanting to not create a fuss, but that seems to have disappeared. So we're feeling that the MRP program during 2013 continues to be very positive. Compliance on the settlement agreements have been very high. We have 100% either full or partial compliance to the agreement on the resolved cases. And we always do an evaluation, ask participants to do an evaluation after mediation. And the response has been very high. Sort of 80% of the survey rate staff and mediators excellent, and the remaining 20% rate them as good. And what I think is really, really significant is 90% of the participants said that they would use the program again. So I think that for people, it's a very good alternative. One of the things that, it's been in the paper, it's everywhere, but the local rental market conditions are significantly increasing. The rental rates are significantly increasing. And we're seeing a lot more of seniors or people who've lived in places for a really long time. The buildings getting sold, the places getting renovated, and the rents are being really massively increased. So we're seeing that, a lot more calls from older people or old long-term residents that are really struggling to be able to stay in the city. So that's certainly a trend that we're seeing. And older buildings being sold and going through this whole renovation process. So, displacing a lot of, 40-year residents here. So that's very significant. And I think the other problem that's happened is in these older buildings where you've had one owner, the rent increases have been very small, so that people have been living in a lot of very affordable housing up till now. And so this trend of buildings turning over has really, really impacted a lot of our residents.
Diane, can I just ask you a question? So this trend of the sort of the family-owned building being turned over, are they typically going to, like a professional property management company? It's not like to another private family, is it?
It's a new owner. It's often a developer.
Okay.
Yeah, so they're, who want to, in this market, you can do a lot with properties, so.
Well, I just know in the past there were families that sort of, real estate was just something they did on the side, and they owned a building, maybe they did other things, and now it seems like they're going with these more professional management companies
and more, developers or the people have, said, I've had the building for 40 years, it's time to sell it, the market's good. So that trend has been happening. And so, and I guess we were seeing that 12 years ago was when the dot-com boom was happening. And so that was sort of an impetus for the MRP. And so we're seeing that trend is kind of coming back again with, these huge increases in rent and people being displaced. But, so that just gives you kind of a sense of what we're seeing in the market. And we're just really want to say that we're very appreciative of the HRC and of this ordinance, because we think it really does plays a significant role in the rental market here. And we hope that it's a valuable tool out there for both landlords and tenants to resolve issues that go on. So thank you. Jill.
Okay, so we have one piece of unfinished business from last year. It's required that we have the HRC approve our slate of new mediators, to approve those that are renewing their terms, and to approve those that move to emeritus status. Last year we didn't actually formally recruit within the community. The prior year, 2012, we had taken on 5 new mediators, and we felt that we didn't want to kind of upset the balance between experienced mediators and new mediators in 2013. So we chose not to recruit within the community. We did, however, take one, I say in quotes, new member, Martin Eichner, who you all know very well, has moved on from Project Sentinel. Many years ago, he was actually interviewed and accepted onto the PAMP slate of mediators. So we just, but he sort of become inactive as a mediator within the group. So we just kind of reinstated him to current. So he was our new mediator last year. Richard Bloomfield, who'd been with the program for many years, has moved to emeritus status. And then we had 6 people re-up. Marina Brodskaya, Wendy Carmody, Joyce Davidson, Elaine. I've got a list for you. Elle Bisri, Karen Michael, and Andrea Werboff have all renewed for a further 2 years. So I guess the first thing I need you to do is to approve those, and then I have a kind of an update on recruiting for this year. Would you like me to? How would you like to do it?
So I think in the past we had like a little bio of the people we were approving or such. Like, I'm not sure how we...
Right, and technically that aspect of it wasn't on the agenda, so I don't believe, we just had a review, the agenda, annual review of the mediation program, so we didn't have approval of new mediators on it. So what we can do is, if you want to introduce them, and then next month we can take a more formal vote. Sounds like they're already serving already.
That's
but
correct.
If it's not technically on the agenda, we can't vote on that tonight.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry if there was a miscommunication, but we just had the review of the program on it.
Oh, okay. So not a problem. So then in March?
In March.
Come back with the bios.
And you wouldn't really need to come back. If you wanted to present a report, and maybe your HRC liaison could present it on your behalf, or you're welcome to come back.
Okay, so I can email the bios to you. So now we're in 2014, and we have started the recruitment process for this year. We currently have 18 actively serving mediators. We lost a few over the last year for various reasons. Of that 18, 10 are up for renewal this year, and we anticipate that most of those will re-up. Our bylaws allow us to have 25 serving mediators, so we're looking to recruit 4 or 5 people, and that will depend on the strength of the applications. So what we've started doing, we have an ad here. This is what we have published in the Palo Alto Weekly. We've also sent it out to the neighborhood associations. We've asked our colleagues. We have a couple of mediators who are at Stanford. We've asked them to sort of publish it within the Stanford community. So applications are due on the 21st of March. In between now and then, we will form a selection committee which will comprise of Diane as the continuing co-chair, Paul as the representative from Project Sentinel, and then 3 of our members at large. And we plan to do our interviewing the last week of March and possibly into early April if necessary.
And I can get that flyer out to the HRC if you'd like.
That'd be great, thank you. I can send it to you in soft copy.
Why don't, if you could do that, that would be helpful, thank you.
All right. And then are we hearing from Paul?
Not unless you have a question that I can answer about it. I think they've covered the statistics and the trends very nicely.
Well, I noticed in your report that things seem to be slightly lower this year than last year. Some of the numbers were just a little bit lower. Is that statistically significant, or is that just kind of the random way things went this year versus the previous year?
Question about the numbers for the MRP in particular?
Yeah, I think in the charts that you had included, the numbers for this current year were just a little bit lower than in past year.
Right. So
Like 305 versus 309, 136 versus 149. Was that significant in any way? Or?
I wouldn't. No, I've only been your administrator for just about a year now, so my grasp of trends is 1 year long and not and not statistically significant. But my noticing is that things come in waves. We're experiencing an awful lot of calls right now, and so whereas last year, towards the end of the year, I was looking at the numbers thinking, oh, we're just hitting the numbers. This year I think we're on pace to exceed them by quite a bit. So that's what the case is. In the call volume, I think a higher percentage of the calls are case worthy this year. And just so you know, if I spend just 5 or 10 minutes on the phone answering a question for someone, that's just a call. If I spend a half an hour or get involved back and forth with them, anything from there forward, I will make a case for it. And most of the things that are cases end up involving, easily 2 or 3 hours of phone and email consultations, even if they don't result in a mediation. So the numbers vary based on the quality, the quality of the question and the amount of support that is being asked for.
Do any other commissioners have questions for?
Yes.
If I pardon. Sorry. Go ahead, Vice Chair Burketti.
We've been hearing a lot about the dramatic increases in rents. And I just want to verify that tenants don't really have any leverage on that, I imagine, because the number of rental increase cases is 1 this year.
Well, so from an MRP perspective, people who were invoking the MRP to try and deal with a rent increase is just 1. There are quite a lot of rent increase calls. When people call, a lot of times the nature of their question is, can they do this? And the short answer is yes. If they are doing it according to, giving proper notice, that's all that's required, unless it's a subsidized housing situation. So those calls, even though I get a lot of them, don't show up on this radar at all.
That's what I thought, and that's what I wanted to confirm.
And I participated with 2 of the members here in a meeting with another organization that is getting lots of calls from people who are seeing really big increases in rent. And the question was put to me about what we're seeing. At Project Sentinel, the calls I'm getting for rent increase typically are in the 10 to 20% level of increase, which is a bit of a notch up, but it's not, it's certainly comparable to other cities in the Bay Area. I'm not getting calls from people generally who are seeing 50 and 100% rent increases, but this other organization is seeing that. I don't know why those people wouldn't also be calling me, but we now have a relationship with Neighbors Helping Neighbors, so they will refer the calls if it seems we can do something for them.
But even 100% increase, it's the same as a 10% increase.
That's, if it's more than you can bear, then it's more than you can bear.
Yeah, but the landlord is the one who has all the leverage in those cases.
Yes, that is true. The only constraint the landlord faces is the timing. So there's very little that a tenant can do to push back about that.
And Commissioner Moore, did you have a question as well?
What about the mediators?
Can you make sure your mic's on?
Is there a term limit, shall we say, for mediators? And because if I remember correctly, last year there was such a full panel that you didn't solicit more applications. So I'm just wondering about that.
So
Burnout.
we require that anybody joining the panel will serve for 2 years. At the end of the 2 years, then it's we reach out to them and ask whether they would like to renew their term. And most generally, I mean, we have people on the panel that have been with the program 10 years, and then going down from that, 5 years, 4 years.
There is a provision that, where we keep track of people's level of engagement with the program, and if the mediator is unable to answer the call more than a little bit, a conversation will be started with them about, is this practical, is this working for you, because we're not seeing your hand that much. But all those conversations resolve, typically because the person says, oh, actually it's true, I don't have time to do this now. So we've had people who dropped off for that reason. We also have people who opt out for a short while. They ask for a temporary leave because they're dealing with, something with their family or things like that. But generally speaking, if someone is active, we cherish the experience that they keep with the community, and there's no excellent reason not to keep them on.
But if I could just inquire a little further, there's no reason why this year you're looking for 5, was it? And last year you had a full slate, as I understand it.
We have lost, as I mentioned, about 4 or 5 people during this past year, and mainly it was because of non-engagement, and we reached out to them and asked them whether this was really working for them, and when they said not, then we kind of came to an agreement with them that we wouldn't require that they complete the 2-year term.
Thank you.
I have a question to ask you. How do you distribute those costs among those mediators?
In my role as the administrator, when I get a call that's a request for mediation, I put out a note to all the mediators and ask who's available to do the case development for that mediation. And I keep track of who's raising their hand and who's done mediations, and I load balance using those numbers. So if someone raises their hand who hasn't had the opportunity to mediate for a while, I will tap them to do the case development or the co-mediation.
Thank you.
So any other questions? I will thank you so much for coming. It's great to see all of you again. And yes, and we would be happy to take a look and approve the mediators next meeting.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. And I have now lost my copy of the agenda, so I am not, here I am. All right, moving on to our next item. We have another guest speaker, in our continuing educational learning series on affordable housing. So Tim Wong has come and spoken to us before, but he has come back for a return engagement. Thank you, Tim. And Mika, did you have anything that you wanted to add about Tim's background?
I know that he's a senior planner with the city of Palo Alto, and he works on affordable housing, and he's very graciously agreed to come here twice, and I have forwarded some questions from the chair and vice chair, and it was primarily from the vice chair.
I'll be happy to answer any other questions you may have.
Great.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Good evening, all. Thank you for having me. Again, my name is Tim Wong. I am a senior planner with the City of Palo Alto, and I am the project manager for the updating of the housing element, and that's what I am here to speak about this evening. First, I'd like just to pass out, this is an FAQ about what is a housing element and some follow-up questions, but just as a quick background, every jurisdiction in California is required to have what is known as a comprehensive plan or a general plan, which is, in a nutshell, the guiding document for potentially the growth of the city physically, and also the housing element is one of the mandated elements of this comprehensive plan. And the housing element is unique in the comprehensive plan because it is the only element in the comprehensive plan that requires approval by the state. And right now we are going through the updating of our housing element to be approved by the state, and the deadline is January 30th of 2015. I will talk more about the update later, but as a background, just kind of going through the FAQs, and I apologize, this isn't an updated FAQ. We are in the process of updating some additional questions that the public has brought up about the housing element. But basically, the housing element is the city's guiding document for housing needs and to help plan for accommodating future housing needs for the city. And as part of the future, and also as part of the housing element, you must study certain things such as analysis of the existing housing needs, looking into projected needs, a site inventory to accommodate future need, and I will get more into accommodating the future need, or RHNA, the Regional Housing Needs Allocation. And also, the housing element must have programs, policies, and objectives about how to encourage and achieve our need for the future. And as part of our housing need, the housing element must also look at providing for all income levels, all segments of the population, providing housing for those groups, for those income levels. And so, as I said, we're going through our housing element update for this, for the 2015-2023 period. And as part of the update, we have to, again, plan for our future need, which leads me into what is known as the Regional Housing Need Allocation. Sometimes you hear about in the press or that the city has to build X amount of units by this date, and that coincides with the Regional Housing Needs Allocation. And just, it's another handout showing the City of Palo Alto's allocation, or that the city must accommodate for the future. So for the period of 2014-2022, the city must show that it can accommodate an additional 1,988 units. And as part of the 1,988 units, we must show that we can provide 691 very low income units, 432 low income units, 278 moderate income units, and then the remaining 587 for above moderate. And so as part of the housing element, we will need to do a sites inventory where we can identify sufficient sites to zone for the 1,988 units. I should make it very clear that the housing element requires that we zone or accommodate for these units, but we are not under the obligation to construct these units. So I want to make that perfectly clear. Yes, we need to zone, provide the opportunities for the development of these units, but the city is not required to build 1,988 units. So, and in terms of how we got to this 1,988 units, it starts with this very lengthy process. I don't know how involved you want to get into, but it starts off with the state saying, we feel the Department of Finance will do projections saying for this upcoming period, 2014 through 2022, we believe that we project that the state is going to need, and I don't know what the number is, approximately, 1.5 million units for this upcoming term. And as part of the process, that 1.5 million, or whatever that number is, gets divided into councils of governments throughout the state, from San Diego up to the Oregon border. And for the city of Palo Alto, wherein our council of government is the Association of Bay Area Government. And for ABAG, they were assigned a total of approximately 187,000 units. So of the 187,000 units, it had to be divided amongst the 7 counties that make up ABAG. And so the ABAG methodology involved in allocating these units, it involves 3 factors. It involves housing growth, it involves employment growth, existing and emerging or planned, and also partly transit. So for these they put all these numbers into this formula, weighting these 3 factors, and this is how the city of Palo Alto came out with this 1,988 units. As part of the methodology, I believe Council Member Scharf and also Council Member Schmidt was very active during this ABAG methodology process in scrutinizing the assumptions and also just looking at the methodology process to get to this 1,988 number.
Just Councilmember Scharf.
Oh, excuse me. Okay, I thought it was.
He's an alternate to the executive board for ABAG.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor Shepherd, for that clarification.
Just to back up too, I believe Curtis has explained that the decision to come up with these numbers is based on the percentage of economic development growth they expect the state of California to have, based on national configuration of how much they expect GDP to grow. And then they back into how many units they're going to need. So it's based on that, and then they figure out how many workers they need. And then
Correct. Yes, that is part. Yes.
The really huge picture of RENA as opposed to what happens here.
Exactly. Yeah. It's a very complicated and complex methodology. And if you would like additional information about that, I'll be happy to provide it to you. But that was just
the economist for them.
He helps with
RENA.
Yeah, the Department of Finance. Yeah. But as part of it, I would like to also, get back into, we are now starting our process for updating the housing element to, and one of the things we'll be looking at is how can we find enough sites to accommodate the 1,988. It's actually not that high of a number because in our current housing element, we have identified enough sites to accommodate approximately 1,600 units. So we can use those sites to roll into the new one, but we still need to find additional sites for approximately 500 to 600 additional sites. And between now and July, August, we'll be going through that process of identifying that site. In addition to looking at other parts of the housing element, we will be updating our existing housing needs. In the current housing element, we use data from the 2000 census and 2006 through 2008 ACS data, and we'll be updating it with 2010 data. Also, we'll be looking at reviewing all different aspects of the housing element, including a review of our programs and policies to see what has worked, what hasn't worked, and what additional programs could we possibly implement or place in the housing element to encourage additional affordable housing and other housing opportunities as part of it.
And you said we are looking at our estimate of housing needs. Are these dueling estimates, ABAG's estimate and our own independent one? How do you decide whether simply ABAG's number is the right number?
We are required to go with ABAG's number. And so we have scrutinized those numbers as part of the ABAG methodology process, but this is the final allocation, and our housing element must show how we are going to meet this final allocation.
Okay, I guess I misunderstood. I thought you said that we were figuring out an estimate, making an estimate also. We, Palo Alto.
No, we're just going through the process of.
No, but you're trying to figure out what our status is of our own assessment of our housing. I think that's where you might have.
That is correct.
What's the difference between our own assessment and ABAG's assessment?
As part of our own assessment, we will be looking at some of these items, such as existing housing needs. We will be reviewing what percentage, for example, the demographics, what percentage of households are overpaying, what percentage of our population is in overcrowded situations. So we will be reviewing our overall housing landscape, if you will, about what are our housing needs. Is it for one of our target groups, for example, are large families, and we'll be looking at what type of issues are our large families facing when looking for housing in the city of Palo Alto. Is it the shortage of rental units? So we'll be reevaluating all those different sections in terms of needs. Yeah.
So Tim, at the HRC, we've been concerned about the lack of affordable housing for some of our residents. So how meaningful is it to identify sites but not be required to actually construct them? So where is the teeth in this assessment?
Well, as part of it, it's some things that we can do is offer incentives to possibly lessen some of the constraints to producing affordable housing. That may be offering financial assistance, which we already do.
To the residents or to the developer?
To developers, excuse me.
I want to explain the density thing as well.
Okay, yeah. But in addition to providing financial assistance, it may be that we say if you build affordable housing, that we'll waive development impact fees. we haven't proposed that, but those are some of the incentives, or we lessen the development time, or the processing time, excuse me. Or if you do affordable housing, we might relax some of the requirements, which kind of dovetails into Mayor Shepherd's comment about possibly promoting density bonus. Density bonus is a state program which if you build a certain percentage of affordable housing, you will get a higher density above what the maximum zoning allows, and also you get what are known as concessions, which are regulatory relief from local planning guide or requirements. So that is something that we could also use as an incentive to produce additional affordable housing. Yeah.
Tim, so I think I do understand the constraints the city is with ABAG, but you know, in some ways, it seems to me that it puts the city in a bit unfair situation because we are not in control of our destiny. And if you look at Measure D results, you know, a substantial part of the population has clearly indicated that they like to see slower growth in Palo Alto. So the ABAG mandate doesn't help that. And my question to you is, do you know if the city is trying to get out of it in some ways? No, I don't think there might not be legal ways to do it, but there could be ways to ask legislators to change the legislation. You see what I mean? I don't think we would win with a lawsuit, but although I'm not a specialist, but could we try to influence our legislators? Change the rules? Because I'm sure we're not the only ones who are not happy with this kind of allocation.
Certainly that is an option that can be pursued through the legislative process. There have been a number of jurisdictions to pursue that. I don't know. They've been successful in maybe modifying certain parts, but in terms of, but it is an option. Legislative change is an option. But yes, many jurisdictions have made that comment that we are losing local control by having these state mandates.
But what is the city doing? Right now you're just like preparing this in the housing element, taking this number as a given, and
yes.
That's it.
Yes, we are taking this as a final given number, and we are planning to meet this number. Yeah.
And my last question for a moment would be: so you mentioned earlier that you already identified 1,600 sites. And you need to find more, but where are we going to find? Where did you find the space even for the 1,600 sites?
Just to clarify, we've identified sites to accommodate up to 1,600 units.
Okay.
And these sites.
The process that we have with the Regional Housing Mandate Committee that we just had the meeting today. So it's
sure.
How it's, and Hillary has a great way of doing this. So
yeah.
We have a subcommittee of council.
We do have a subcommittee, and right now we are meeting with them in looking at how to select sites. And
it has 2 school board members, and sorry.
No, that's okay. Yes, there's a lot riding on it. I digress. There are some substantial penalties by not meeting the January 31st, hence Mayor Shepherd's concern. If we do not meet the January 31st, 2015 deadline, the city could open itself up to lawsuits. Well, from a state perspective, yeah.
And Menlo Park should be on the list of suits.
Yes.
Let's do them instead.
What happens is the state has mandated that if we don't meet our January 31st deadline, I know in this FAQs it says we update every 5 years, but it's actually we update every 8 years. But and that was a new change. But if we do not meet that January 31st, 2015 deadline, we will be required to go through this exercise every 4 years. And so that in itself is a substantial penalty. hence we want to meet that. Also, we do open ourselves up to lawsuits that outside parties can come in and sue the city for not having an adopted housing element. And also, and part of that is we may lose our own local control. If the lawsuit, if they prevail, that the courts can take over the city's land use approval process, which is a very scary thing. And that was the main driving force with Menlo Park, that they would lose their local ability to approve.
So just to assume,
Very close to losing it.
Yeah.
If they didn't get it passed within, 150 days?
Yes, they had
Plenty of fees, $1.5 million worth of fees. The judge would have just gone ahead.
Yeah, and that's when Facebook was moving in, so they were extra motivated to get their housing element to
They would
avoid.
have blocked the fees.
Yeah.
They wouldn't have been able to give permits to Facebook. to
Yeah.
move in. Because, well, it's right here, you would lose your ability to issue permits.
Yes.
I see. So, just to finish on the
So,
1,600
but-
sites, so you were starting to say there was units. Okay, sites for these 1,600 units. You were saying that you had a subcommittee that has identified them, but is that a wide variety of parcels throughout Palo Alto, or is there a specific area where they're concentrated? Or?
No, I do have a map. Oh,
Yeah.
that I can show you. But basically, what we're looking at is we're looking at sites that can accommodate these units. Therefore, we need the zoning, the density, to achieve to meet that. And but this is a map of the entire city. The areas in gray are zoned R1, or single-family residential, and so therefore we really can't. And I believe probably 99.5% of R1 lots are already developed anyways and protected, but.
Kind of show where El Camino is. Just
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. This is Alma. This is El Camino University, and this is California.
And Stanford is up there to the left.
Yes, yes. And this is our industrial area. Okay, just for an orientation.
They decided to take in committee that they would take 37 acres of land to find R20, to zone at R20, right?
Yes. We need to find approximately 600 units, and as part of the whole process, HCD has said that to make opportunities a realistic density for low-income housing, you need at least 20 units per acre. Oh, Housing and Community Development. That's the State Department that is reviewing all the housing elements. They have said for Palo Alto, you need minimum 20 units per acre to give a realistic chance for low-income housing opportunities. So, like Mayor Shepherd was saying, we need to identify approximately 600 more units. If we use that 20 unit per acre default density, we're looking at, we need to find 30 acres somewhere to accommodate those additional 600 units. And as you can see, most of this area is all single family, so we can't do it there. There are other areas such as PF, which is public facilities. We're not going to be building multifamily units on public facilities or R1. So basically, what we're left with is these areas in pink are our multifamily zoned districts. These are actually commercial, but in our commercial zones, we are allowed. You are allowed to do mixed use.
I live in one of those.
Oh, okay, very good. And also in the downtown area and a little bit along San Antonio Avenue is commercially zoned, so they could have mixed use by right. And we included the RP, which is Research Park, because in a research park and also in our ROLM, which is Research Office Light Manufacturing, you are allowed to have multifamily housing with what is known as a conditional use permit.
Tim,
But you
can
can,
I ask
oh,
a quick question.
sure.
So the current construction going on South El Camino, does that count toward the 600 units you need to identify, or that's in addition to the 600 units?
That is in addition. If you're referring to, for example, the Monroe
Yeah.
Place units, those we had counted in our previous housing element. So yes, we need to find 600 units in addition to.
Is
They would
anybody
be
else scared
considered-
of that besides me?
Scared of what?
It's identifying another 600 units in
Yeah.
the city?
Well, why do you think I'm terrified?
So Tim,
But we do-
Tim, if say Buena Vista Mobile Home Park closes, all right, so were those counted in the previous?
Those are not counted, although the rents there are equal to rents in affordable housing units. Since they are not deed restricted, those
weren't
don't.
counted before.
No, there were existing
But
units.
if affordable units were built there, those would count towards your 600? Say hypothetically.
Hypothetically, I believe they could. There's something, there is laws about converting existing units to affordable units and whether you can take credit. It's a very, we were just discussing this
Right,
previous,
the-
it's a very small box. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
They're gonna do a memo
yeah.
clarifying that, and also the term apartments that are rolling right now. that
Yeah.
are turned into the-
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, I still need some clarification, which is, before I thought you said 1,600 were already identified, so which would have left you with 388 units, as I understand it.
Yes, I should clarify. To meet the minimum, we need 388 additional units. But this is based on, in the last current housing, the current housing element, the state required that we have a surplus of about 150, 200 units. So the 388 plus the 200 is 600 units.
And so, two other question. I mean, fundamentally, we're talking about probably apartments, condos, those kinds of things, correct?
Multifamily, yes,
dwellings.
yes.
And before you were talking about zoning. So, zoning is an issue, meaning that you have to identify and either accept this current, like you're saying here, the research park, light manufacturing. That would be already a zone that would take these. But you're also considering rezoning some other areas. And I just want to say, just for the record, apartment buildings don't worry me that much. Just for the record, having grown up in them, just for the record. So I might be. I'm not sure. With more information, I might get more terrified. But right now, I don't find that scary.
Okay.
What about traffic?
Those are issues to be dealt with in a growing, wonderful community such as ours, which is benefiting from so much increasing
So by the way,
manufacturing.
are units?
But wait, I had a question. You were saying?
So these areas that are colored, if you will, are areas that will allow for apartments, multifamily
That's
housing.
the pink area you
The
said.
pink areas and some of the other colored areas.
As long as
Technically,
it's not gray.
Stanford Shopping Center, the zoning, the CC zoning allows for mixed use. Whether, they'll actually, but per the zoning code, they are allowed to build housing. Same with Town and Country and along San Antonio, where it's mostly right now automotive and, but
Is that still Palo Alto over on
yes,
San Antonio?
yes, it
Okay.
is. The very southern border, yes.
Okay.
So,
But the other thing that I think people need to understand is that doing the housing element means that we not only zone for it, but there will be a likelihood that somebody would build there too. So it's not like we're trying to, so they look for things. They look for, they don't like a whole bunch of little tiny sites all over the place. They want to see friendly builds, so
yes, as part of it, one of the arguments that whatever sites we propose, we will have to argue that there is a realistic capacity or a realistic
attractive
development. And in Palo Alto, you could, in today's market, thankfully for staff, very myopic view, we can say that all sites are attractive, and the market is so hot right now. But yes, like Mayor Shepherd said, we must justify, if you will, why we chose these sites and why we think they would be sufficient.
They have to defend it. And then also, they will look back to see what our yield was before, to see if we're really credible. I mean, it's a give and a take, and it's a give and a take, and it goes back and forth.
Absolutely.
So we have to submit in November to clear the January deadline.
And so in the current housing element, one of the things we did do, because majority of our sites were focused on El Camino and on University. So as part of it, we had to do a write-up, a justification why we feel this area along El Camino is attractive, ripe, quote unquote, for development. And we gave some additional factors, but for the general, Sacramento understands the housing market in Palo Alto.
Earlier you were talking about densities of 20 units?
Yes, that's the default density that
20 per acre.
20 per acre, in which if we say this zone
Economically makes sense for Palo Alto.
not what economically makes sense for Palo Alto, but the state has said that in Palo Alto, we feel that 20 units per acre minimum is a sufficient density for low-income housing. So
we don't have that as a zone, so
yeah.
we created a zone for us.
I mean, 801 Alma has 83 units. It's got 50 units and 6/10 of an acre.
Correct.
So that's 4 times as great in terms of density. Can we think of those, can Palo Alto think of those kinds of densities on some of these sites along the corridors that you were just...
Well, along the El Camino corridor, there are zones. CS allows you up to 30 units per acre, and CN allows for 15, and CC is also up to 30 units per acre, I believe. So the zoning exists for maybe not up to.
That's a PC though, isn't it? Get up to that density?
For 801?
Yeah.
No, they initially explored a PC zone, but they went with the RT, the existing RT 50 zoning for 801. RT 50 is residential transition. It is a zoning that is unique to the SOFA, South of Forest Area Plan. Yeah, sorry, a lot of acronyms. I apologize. But RT50, yeah, you can get densities up to that amount.
Tim, a quick question. When you talk about units, whether it's low income or whatever, high income, how many people are on average per unit? How many inhabitants per unit?
We do not track average,
But you must have some expectation of how many, like for instance, ABAG mandate is 1,900 or almost 2,000 units. But how many people in total will be expected?
Oh, the 19, I don't know how many people. That is based on ABAG's projection, and I'm not sure what their projection was. I can get that information for you.
Another way, what's the unit? Is that like a one-bedroom apartment?
It can be a 1, it can be a 2, it can be a studio, it can be a 3-bedroom. We don't define bedroom size as like 2 bedrooms equals a unit. No, as long as it's a dwelling unit, it has a kitchen. We just find that as a unit.
So I would just say, I'll make an assumption. It's like 2 people per unit. It's like 4,000 people. That's a lot of growth.
Okay.
So Tim, I don't see extremely low income housing on your chart anywhere. Is that a separate category, or is that subsumed under very low?
It is assumed under very low as half, 50% of the very low income allocation.
Okay.
Yeah.
And in Palo Alto, would the strategy be to build developments that would be sort of mixed in terms of some people paying market rates and some people having affordable housing rates, or are you thinking of a dedicated affordable housing units going up?
Both. Very supportive of mixed income housing. Our below market rate program promotes mixed income housing, and if they could do a mixed unit type with a majority of affordable housing, that would be great. But because of the current financing, most affordable housing is developed by tax credits these days, which it's more competitive to do 100%, not to exclude mixed income housing, but 100% affordable in the whole competitive tax credit process is more preferable.
And another question for me is, I'm a South Palo Alto dweller, and I live on El Camino. And along the corridor near where I live, there are many, many closed businesses. For example, Compadres has been closed for like 10 years. There's a big sort of empty field near the Walgreens on El Camino. Is the city looking at some of these sites that have sort of been dormant for a long time? Is there a possibility of acquiring and building in any of these empty sites?
I don't know about acquiring, but in...
The city doesn't build housing. We're not in the business of building housing.
Yeah.
I mean, like, just in terms of identifying, I'm sorry.
That's the housing core.
Those sites have been identified as in our current housing. The billboard 4146 El Camino has been identified. Compadres 3877 El Camino, that has been identified. For 3877 there was a proposal for that property where they proposed 17 units as part of it. So that's going through its process. But many of these sites along El Camino have been identified. Okay. Not all of them, but many of them, where they show that some of the buildings are a little older, therefore a little more ripe for redevelopment. And those initial sites were chosen in this current housing element.
Additional questions from commissioners? Yes, Commissioner Moore.
And this is
you have to speak into the mic.
Yes. It's more a clarification question again. 300 acres, so 20 per acre, meaning 300 acres.
30.
30, feel much better now. Thank you very much. 30 is still a lot, right?
It is?
For our town.
It is.
Think of Coverly.
That's what I was wondering, yeah. Great. So Coverly's not that much.
Let me tell you, there's a couple of things that, since you're here for low-income housing and your interest is the way I understand this agenda item.
Well, it's an affordable
housing. Affordable housing. Yeah. Well, the density bonus law does allow you to get your affordable housing units, but they only stay in that below market rent for 30 years, and then they go to market. And so that's one of the incentives. So the way we do it is either they build it or they give us a fee for not building it. And that's how we gather fees that go into our below market rent.
Yeah.
What do we call it? Account, which different agencies ask for when they want to do a project. So we gave $1 million to Stevenson House, is that over here, to refurbish their tilt-up building, which is seismically terribly retrofit. And they needed to bundle, like he said, all these grants, in order to come up with a $40 million bundle, which they had to spend $20 million on in order to go from the ground up and correct everything. So, and that's how Maybell got, the Maybell project had a few $1 million from us, but they got it from the county. And so they bundle all these things, and the rubric for doing it is extremely complicated, and you have to be an expert, because I just have to rely on them. So right now we have the TAN apartments, which were built after the school district sold off Terman. Is that correct? Or not the TAN, the Terman apartments. The Terman apartments are now maturing out of the 30 years. Is that correct? Or something?
We've done some additional research, and I think they're okay through 2024 now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. But this is an experience where they built on the old school site, and yet, when we actually do a PC, we can have them go into perpetuity. So it is low-income housing until another city council comes forward and says, we're all low-income housing, we're going to let them go to market, or something. But that would take an act of the council to rezone.
So can I understand? And that is that for 30 years, it has to be regulated low-income housing or something, and then in 30 years it can be like sold at
It's
market.
deed restricted.
It's deed restricted through the density bonus program. If the city provides financial assistance in conjunction with tax credits or other financing sources, for the most part, it's 55 years. And if the unit is created through our below market rate program, then it's up to 59 years.
It's state mandated, so it's basically
Yeah.
an entitlement. They get to do it.
The 30 years we can't do any additional extension of that. It's state mandated. That is correct.
So the BMR units are 59 years?
Yes, and that's the ownership units. From our BMR program, our city program.
Yeah.
If it's done through our city program, then it's 59 years. Yeah.
Wow.
Or if it's held by the housing corps, it's their mission to have below market rent. So you don't need to technically have it be deed restricted, I don't think, but it will be restricted based on the title of the loan and all these other things. But if we do a zoning, which is typical of all of our zoning is PC primarily along most of our below market rent housing with the housing corps, then it's in perpetuity. We don't have to worry about it rolling out. So.
Wow, fascinating.
I'm sorry.
No.
But believe me, it's a firefighter information. I know what you're thinking, and so that's why, and he's in it all day long.
Yeah.
So are there any other questions for Tim? Or I guess Mayor Shepherd, since she's been his...
Well, you might want to just know, we are taking this really seriously, and it's going to go fast. And we are on, it's Streamline, is that what it's called?
A streamlined update, which means that HCD will take less time to review, which we really need in order to meet our January 30th. But as we go through the update process, I want to say that HRC does have a role in this, in that, just to begin with, in this earlier meeting with the RHMC, as part of the update, we will be putting together a community panel of various stakeholders throughout the city.
Are they on that?
Yes.
Okay.
HRC.
So somebody will be coming.
Yeah. One of your fellow commissioners, hopefully, will be on our community panel. Invitations for that will be going out next week or very shortly. And so...
this afternoon.
Yeah, we just got the go-ahead, if you will, the blessing of the RHMC.
We haven't seen that yet. All right,
So,
it's
yeah.
Could you give us sort of the table of organization? How many units are working on this housing? You've got a community panel, you've got you and your staff. Are there other bodies, committees, groups, task forces?
Just the city is leading the housing element update. The community panel is part of its public participation process, where as the HRC, along with a number of other organizations throughout the city, such as neighborhood organizations, the school district, affordable housing developers. This is the list. This is the proposed list. And I can get League of Women Voters, let's see, housing advocates, persons with disabilities, senior citizen. It'll be a fairly large community panel, but we want to make sure that we get input from all different segments of housing stakeholders.
So this group would function in parallel to the staff over what period?
No, it would be to draw comment, provide comments to staff as we go through the process. The Regional Housing Committee will review staff proposals, but in addition to, the community panel will also review whether it be the selection of the sites, addition of programs or policies to the proposed housing element, and also, in addition, when we go through with our documentation of assessing the needs, that would be part of the HRC, the community panel review also.
Community panel's input go into the staff?
Let me explain how.
Does it go into the council?
No, it goes.
It'll be.
I'll try to do this because I'm halfway between them and you. So if I can explain it Typically, staff does the housing element. And I'm not sure if other cities actually go out to stakeholders. I don't know if you're required to go out to stakeholders. But what our city did a couple of years ago, we established a committee, a subcommittee called the Regional Housing Mandate Committee, because we knew that this was a hot issue in the community. And it was expected to be able to help vet it more. And we included 2 school board members and 1 plan and transportation commissioner. Last year, we did our last 7-year period for the housing element. So we have a brand new, spanking brand new certified housing element as of, November last year or something, when the certification came through. This year, we get to do it all over again with our new numbers. So we are front-ending it as opposed to last time we back-ended it in the 7-year period. So, the fun part is we have a lot of unbuilt zoning, so we kind of have this large 1,200 units or so. So there's this smaller delta than before. The problem is we have to do it again. And they saturated all of the spots last time. So now they're going back in. So the Regional Housing Mandate Committee is active this year. Greg Schmidt is the chair. And Hillary, our new planning director, has come up with this brilliant idea, which I am shocked that she wants to do this, because I thought that this subcommittee would do a lot of good vetting for the council. She wants to do the stakeholder group. So this stakeholder group will have an even richer volume of people coming in to vet this. But she's actually going to be making very specific turns. She has to get through this. So then it'll go back to committee, it'll go out to stakeholders and back to committee, and then if it can't get through committee fast enough, it'll go all the way up to 9 members of council so that we can stay on track with this streamline.
What committee is that?
The Regional Housing Mandate Committee. The stakeholder group is below that. It will be funneling their information up there.
Correct.
Is the community panel, and so they'll go up, and that information will be bundled by Hillary. It's actually Hillary going out, and you guys going out and saying, how do you like this? Will this work? Do you think this will fly? That kind of thing. And then she actually will make the decision, though. She says, well, we've gotten down to these 3 things that nobody can decide on as to who gets the short straw on this last thing that we are going to have to zone. But then council's going to have to vote it. We're going to have to vote it in November. And it all has to be done, and if we don't get it in by November, and along the way there's going to be tipping points where if we slip along the way, we will fall out of our streamline. And so we will then be in a very precarious position where we will likely have something ready to go, but it will not be prepared in time, and so we will be open to lawsuits.
So I've got 2 boxes on my chart. One is the community panel, the other is the regional housing mandate. Who does that report to? Is it
who does who?
Staff?
The regional housing,
Yeah.
The regional housing subcommittee from council. That would be like finance committee for council's finance committee. So that's 4 council members.
It's a council subcommittee.
It's a council subcommittee.
Yeah.
Okay, so it reports to the council, not to another council committee.
Right. It'll go, so the stakeholder group will give Hillary a lot of information that she will go and say, hey, you guys on the subcommittee of council, this is what everybody thought. This is so that when it goes to full council, we don't have to go through that kind of workshop style of committee-ish stuff. And so
Where's staff in this? Is it working alongside?
Staff is carrying the whole ball.
Yes.
Staff is doing the whole thing. Staff does everything.
And also
Bring it to us they just bring it to us for, like, this is where we are, and if that council subcommittee says we don't like it, Hillary has 2 choices. Either she goes back or she takes it to full council and hopes that at least 5 members of council like it.
Yeah. And the community panel is basically representatives of the public, eyes and ears of the public that staff can interact with. We will have 2, just to kick off the whole update process, we will have 2 community workshops with the general public, one in North Palo Alto, one in South Palo Alto, where we'll say, housing element 101. This is what a housing element is, kind of the first half of the meeting will walk you through that process, and then the second half.
Yeah, it's housing. I think we're calling it. Well, this is all under the umbrella of our Palo Alto. This is all under the umbrella of our Palo Alto to get as many people involved in helping to move the city forward.
Yeah.
And so this is under the ideas component of it, where we're having workshops, and she talked about it just today, Housing Element 101, so that anybody can come to all of them, but there will be identified stakeholders that she will be addressing specifically. Yeah. So.
And then, the second part of the workshop would be to solicit input about housing, anything and everything about housing, and then we'll disseminate that as input. And if there are some common themes that come up, we'll start focusing on those. But after the community workshops, staff is depending on the community panel, if you will, to continue to represent the public through the process. We will not be holding community workshops every month or every other month, but the community panel will be the public for.
Tim, thank you so much for being here today.
Sure.
I'm going to have a last call for any questions or comments.
No, thank you. It's very useful very complex.
I think, Minka, you should maybe get our Palo Alto presented to the HRC, because that's...
Yeah, and thank you so much, Mayor Shepherd, for jumping in and also helping to guide our discussion. It was very, very informative. And Tim, you are our first repeat performer, so we are very appreciative of having you here.
Thank you for having me. No, like Mayor Shepherd said, it's a big deal, so it needs to be out there to let everyone know that the city is going through this process, and to get everyone involved as much as possible.
Well, I know I can speak for...
being accused of not listening to our community.
Yes.
Right? So this is our effort to... We're not telling them to listen to us. We're just saying, hey, this is...
Well, I know there are several HRC commissioners who would be very interested in helping out with this project, so thank you for letting us know.
And I think there are additional questions, so perhaps Commissioners Chen and Vice Chair Piketty could meet with you for some of the questions they had, because I know there were several left unasked today, because this is a very expansive conversation.
I have answers. I'll be happy to meet with you offline, or if you want to schedule me for a third comeback, third time's a charm, I'd be happy to, but either or.
The Regional Housing Mandate Committee meeting that's very clear what's going on. She's got it very mapped out, very specific, very nice.
So,
very impressive.
Okay.
He'll buy you a scone. Thank you again, Tim. All right, we're going to move on to our next agenda item, which is a motion regarding the continuing participation of Avenidas and PAC in the HISRAP program. Commissioner Piketty had put together a draft of a resolution. We have looked at a previous draft, and this one's been slightly revised. Commissioner, would you like to introduce your revised motion?
Everything that I think we talked about or are trying to accomplish is in this piece of paper, page and a half, starting with the rationale and then going to the motion. So I'd really rather just answer questions, or if people have concerns or considerations or other things. But everything I have to say I've put into this piece of paper.
So other questions? Yes, Commissioner Esrin?
So it's déjà vu all over again.
Don't pull these French phrases.
But I want to say that I will support this motion that Commissioner Piketty has put together. I want also to thank him for doing so. I think it's very well thought out. I think it's balanced. It takes into consideration different viewpoints, opposing viewpoints, and I think it kind of finds a middle ground. So I really like it a lot. I will support that.
I'm also wondering, I don't know if it's appropriate, though, can we ask Ms. Hendrickson and Ms. Shaw if they would like to speak to? Do either of you have any comments or questions about Commissioner Piketty's resolution? Or I know you've spoken to us before, and it's like your third time back here, but just wondered if you had any input that you'd like to give before we get into our own discussion. If you do, please come up and... You can sit right here if you'd like to, Lisa.
That's all right. I think we just stand by our original request, which is that we be removed entirely from his rep. And while we recognize that this motion addresses some of the issues that, that we raised, history tells us that we are going to still be active in advancing recommendations that are inconsistent with your commissions in the future. And that was a dynamic that we were hoping we would not have to expect in the future. As we see it, if the budget goes up, we are assured any cost of living increase, however that is determined. But if the ISRAP budget increases any more than that, that incremental amount is to be distributed at the discretion of the HRC. And history tells us, because we've been doing this a long time, that our agencies will not get the full increase, that likely it will be allocated to other agencies and perhaps new agencies. And that's what perpetuates the dynamic that we've been hoping to get away from. On the other hand, if the budget is decreased, we'll receive the full decrease. Although we do appreciate that the motion protects our current funding from being reduced so other agencies can be increased.
Just a point of clarity, if there were an increment above the cost of living, and you were out of HAZRAT, there's no guarantee that you would
we understand that.
Get an allocation, because you would then report into the city administration.
Right.
So with what you just said, it isn't as likely to happen, at least not automatically.
We understand that the level of our funding is not assured one way or the other if we're contracting directly. We know that. And yet the possibility exists, does it not, that direct contracts would be increased in a given year more than that year's cost of living? So that possibility isn't precluded by direct contracting with the city.
Not precluded.
It's not precluded, but it all depends on the amount of budget that human services in general gets, and that's
right.
a little more, staff-driven, where the HRC makes recommendations to the Finance Committee, which makes recommendations to Council. So there is, in a way, more focus, could be considered more focus on increased funding for his rep than the other contractors that are just general
Sure.
direct contractors with human services. So it doesn't preclude it, but there is less focus.
Right. Okay.
An interesting possibility would be, not that if there were an increment above cost of living, not that it would get distributed proportionally to everybody, but that everybody who was in there and said, I'd like a piece of that because I've got this new idea. I'm moving into this area where there's some emerging needs that we don't now cover. And I would think that would be given as much consideration as any of the other agencies or a new agency that said, we're not in, but we'd like to be in.
Right. Well, I respect that the motion meets your objectives, and it does, and I respect that. And
Right. So anyone else have any questions for Ms. Hendrickson or Ms. Shaw? All right, so let's go ahead and discuss amongst ourselves. Do people have comments about the motion, concerns? I'd like to say I personally would like, or I would prefer to see Avenidas and PAC stay with us. I totally understand the concerns that they've brought to the HRC. I think that the ultimate problem here really is the chronic underfunding of his RAP and the failure to provide regular cost of living increases, such that things have gotten kind of volatile with the funding. My subcommittee is currently working on a supplemental needs assessment that I hope will gather some great data that we can go to the Finance Committee with and present the idea that we should be giving regular cost of living increases to his RAP. And I'm hoping our two largest agencies would stay with us through that process so we can see what kind of gains we might possibly be able to get. And I would hate to see them jump ship too soon. But they have brought forth some very valid concerns. I think a lot of what they are concerned about is addressed by Commissioner Bicchetti's motion. So at this time, my own feeling is I'd like to see them stay with us, and I would also bring Commissioner Ezra past this motion and, see if this is enough of a middle ground that we can kind of maintain for now, and then, see where we get with the whole issue of the chronic underfunding, which is what I think really needs to be addressed. So what do other commissioners think?
Well, I just have one question. So if we agree to this, can we look at it again in 2 years and redo it if it's not working out the way it should?
I think that we can always, it's not really our decision in the end, it's really council's decision. So I think we could always work with our 2 agencies to see if, if they still have concerns, and then decide next year or 2 years from now that they do want to leave the program. This hasn't protected them in the manner that they expected. I think the HRC would be open to revisiting that issue, and we could always look at it again.
Right, but the decision on this is the council's decision.
Yeah,
The policy
Right.
that you are recommending going forward is going to be a council policy on this matter.
If we come to a meeting and these 2 lovely people walk in the door at the meeting, we'll know that it's not working.
Well, no, they're not
I
happy.
just
come to every meeting. Aren't we always here? One way or the other.
Lately, you are always here.
I just don't want to make them unhappy.
It's not about our happiness.
Well,
No, and I do understand the concern about taking money, not allocating money to these existing agencies and instead funding new agencies. At the same time, Palo Alto is a dynamic community with shifting needs. Sometimes we do need to take a larger holistic view, and at times that may make some of our decisions unpopular with some agencies, but I think there could be nevertheless a benefit to the community and looking at some new providers from time to time. We don't want HISRAP to always be a closed circle, but again, I think when the pie never grows, the pieces get smaller, and that's really the problem. The pie's got to grow along with the city's needs. So I'm kind of in that camp myself, but I'm very open to hearing what others have. Teresa, do you have a comment?
I have a question. Is if we were going to pass this today and give this recommendation as it is to the council meetings, and then can council member modify this?
Yeah,
They certainly can.
Council will do whatever it wants to do.
Yes, and the council may agree with Ms. Shaw and Ms. Hendrickson and decide that no, they should be taken out of HISRAP, and at that point it would be their decision. But I think that, the HRC has been the overseers of this program for a long time, and I think our input's also taken into some serious consideration. And I've given this a lot of thought over the last couple of months, and I'm really grateful to Commissioner Bicchetti for crafting this resolution, as I think it gets us a good part of the way there. It's not, maybe there's not a perfect resolution that makes everyone 100% happy, but I think it addresses some very serious concerns that the agencies brought to us in a meaningful way, and yet I think it preserves the integrity of the program while we take a look at some of these other financial issues that really need to be addressed. So at this time, unless there was other questions or comments from anyone, I would go ahead and move that we pass Commissioner Bicchetti's resolution. Do I have a second? Thank you. I don't really have anything else to add to my motion, other than, again, to express my gratitude to Vice Chair Bicchetti for doing this, and just to let Ms. Hendrickson and Ms. Shaw know that we are very sensitive to your needs, and we have really, really worked hard to try to come up with a compromise that I hope will work, and I hope will just if you can just be patient, just give us a little more time. I think that we might all end up in a better place ultimately. But and thank you for raising the concerns that you did. Do you have want to speak to your second, Commissioner Warren?
No, I think that what was written by Commissioner Bicchetti really does put clearly the balance that we were trying to achieve, and that I completely agree with what you were saying, Commissioner Onan. And then, to some extent, as I become more familiar with the agencies that we're talking about, I realize that also other agencies have expressed some anxiety or concern about the fact that their needs aren't being adequately listened to. And I think that this sort of gives a balance and gives a sense of the fact that we're looking at their needs as well, and gives a sense of security also that the process isn't being chiseled down in time. So I think that's it.
All right, so
Why PNS? Because his rep goes straight to finance.
It goes to, because this is a policy decision, I was asked to bring it to PNS.
Okay.
I think Councilmember Klein wanted it brought to PNS.
That's where he is.
Right, and this request for this item to be brought forth to the HRC came up in last year's budget hearings.
No, I know, that's why
Okay.
I'm confused, because
Yes, we usually go to finance for the actual dollar amounts, but we're asked to go to PNS for this item, policy and services.
And Larry asked for this?
Yes. I'd have to look back at the notes.
But when you go to get your his rep,
we go to finance.
Then we go back to
finance
finance.
can do what they want to do. It just seems
That's
odd to
correct,
have
but this
go
is a
back.
policy decision just regarding his rep and taking Packanack.
Then it'll go from PNS up to council.
Yes.
And then it'll go back to finance.
Then the actual allocations, when those come back up.
Right.
And it doesn't, affect anything for this year. So, so that's how it would work. And just to let you know, when this is going to PNS is a moving target, and I'm afraid every day I'm afraid to
You guys don't have to come back
to email Janice and Lisa, because it's been moved at least 5 times, and I thought I had a secure date of March 25th, and I just got an email yesterday that said, well, maybe it's not March 25th, maybe it'll be March 18th.
Oh,
so I will hope that everybody would be as sympathetic, to wait for the final date for this meeting. It's
Well, the members are back at National League, so they can't meet on the 25th.
right, but I think there was a date earlier where they couldn't meet because
they were out of town.
Councilmember Price was out of town, so they were polling for the 25th.
So we've had many
Right.
Yes.
dates.
Yeah.
Okay, so sometime in March, we'll all just pray that it actually happens, but we will.
They will meet in March.
We'll have the meeting. So at this time, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of passing Commissioner McKetty's resolution regarding Packanack Benitez, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone who's nay or abstain? All right, then we have unanimously passed it.
And when next time you talk about when that meeting's scheduled, you could remind them that the maker of the motion is 80 years old. May not last forever.
I will do my best.
Go outlive us all, Ray. All right, thank you all so much for that, and thank you, Ms. Henderson and Ms. Shaw, for coming yet again. All right. Moving on to our next agenda item, we're going to review the subcommittee work plans, not in a formal sense as we did last time, but if everyone can just give a brief kind of oral update on what they've been doing. I'll be happy to start off with my subcommittee. I'm working on the HISRAP funding along with Commissioners Ezrin and Stone. We've kind of bifurcated the workload at this point. I've been working on a supplemental needs assessment with other agencies, and Commissioners Ezrin and Stone have been working on researching how other communities fund their human services. So what I've done so far is crafted an email survey and then had it reviewed with my subcommittee and with staff. We sent that out to I believe it's 18 agencies now, and asked them to respond by the 21st of this month. I've already had a few replies back. I'm very, very pleased with the data that I'm getting from the agencies. They really seem to understand what I'm digging for, and they're giving me some really good, sharp, clear answers, not a bunch of boilerplate that I was scared they would inundate me with. And I'm hopefully, cautiously, optimistically anticipating the rest of them coming in by the deadline. I will send out a reminder next week that the 21st is coming up. Once all of these surveys are back in, I'll be reviewing them with my subcommittee, and we'll start divvying up who's going to do the follow-up, either by phone or in person, to kind of get some additional detail and clarification from the agencies. And then at that point, we'll begin the task of putting our business case together so that we can go to finance with a request for additional HISRAP funding. So that's where we are with the survey. It's underway and going well. And so I'll ask Commissioners Ezrin and Stone, do you guys have an update on your research into how other communities are funding their human services?
I wasn't able to go to last meeting, so.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I did. I looked into really 6 specific cities around us: Los Altos, Mountain View, Sunnyvale, Santa Clara, Redwood City, and Menlo Park, to get an idea of how they fund similar programs like HISRAP, and so I got some good information to see that most seem to have some sort of program like his rap, fairly comparable to the amount of funds that we give. Of course, if you take out Avenidas and PAC, then maybe not. And also other cities tend to, like one, we were speaking with Mayview Community Center yesterday, and we found out that other cities give the buildings that they use rent free. So little things like that, kind of, you don't see it in the budget, but clearly has a major financial impact on those nonprofits. So I do have some good numbers, and I don't want to bore everybody with, but definitely coming along on that research.
Great. Commissioner Stone, were you able to find out if it was general fund money, or were those human services being funded through its CDBG dollars? Because I think that would be of interest to the group and really speak to some of the information that the staff is interested in as well, and I know other commissioners are.
Yeah, it seemed mixed. I mean, some cities had both CDBG, others had it from the straight from the general fund of the city, and so I do have those numbers and statistics for most of those cities.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Great. So does anyone have any questions or comments on my subcommittee update? All right, so let's move along. Which subcommittee wants to jump in next? Okay, Commissioner Bicchetti and Commissioner Chen. And can you remind everyone what you're working on?
We're working on low-income housing. You've heard of that topic?
Did you find some?
Where is it? And we've been working independently up to now. I was waiting for this meeting tonight myself to learn more from Tim. We realize how complicated this is, but we're looking at a variety of things, and we haven't boiled them down yet to an outline. But, for example, what do comparable communities do? Just as we just heard, what's the history of low-income housing in Palo Alto? What's the demographic profile of our city and nearby cities in terms of the number of people who could use, need, qualify for low-income housing? Where are the financial resources for low-income housing? What are the agencies capable of taking initiative to develop housing, both here and in the county at large? What are the intra-Palo Alto collaborations that are working? For example, Planning and Transportation Committee and the Housing Element and the Palo Alto Housing Corporation and so on. So we're trying to map the territory and then see what falls out or what can be built upon to have the Human Relations Commission make a distinctive contribution to this discussion and not simply add noise to an already pretty noisy conversation. And I think that of all of the places we might come out, one of them would be to try and raise public awareness of who the clients for low-income housing are and what is the economic makeup of Palo Alto in terms of families and how is it changing over time, and there probably isn't any such thing as an ideal makeup, but there's probably such thing as an undesirable makeup. And how can we keep Palo Alto from gravitating in the undesirable direction and stabilize or move forward in a more desirable direction in terms of socioeconomic diversity?
Excellent. Commissioner Chen, do you want to add anything to that?
Actually, we work together.
Together but separately.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
I did have a good review of that housing elements. I read back to back. But anyway, so I got some ideas. I thought the information there is pretty old. Yeah, all the statistics before 2008. So it's good. Actually, we had found a site that we could, modify, with better understanding of my recent stuff. And then I actually went into the housing element and get all the information about finance. How do we finance low-income housing from information? And then I make a summary, so we're going over it. I think right now, the most important job for us to do is to find out what exactly our roles are in this whole picture seems to be very complicated. And where can we actually help? You know, I think one of the places that we can help is to facilitate communication between the city and then, offices versus the people, local people. Have them understand the communication between is very important, because a lot of times they don't know what's going on. That's why they vote no in certain issues. So that's one thing. Okay.
I didn't mean to say we weren't working together.
We know what you meant.
We're collaborating, it's just sometimes we work alone on our own stuff, and then sometimes we come together.
No, you two have been doing a great job as a team. Before we move on to Commissioner Savage's subcommittee, I just wanted to mention briefly, I hope Minka doesn't mind, that we had an opportunity, God, you're going to have to help me out here, where a Stanford student is going to do kind of a project next year.
We don't know yet.
Oh, we don't know yet.
You submitted an idea for the city manager's consideration, which I have not heard back from.
Oh, they haven't heard back. Okay. And anyway, that we've asked that student look into where in Palo Alto there might be some good sites for affordable housing.
Or the diversity of housing, of which low income could be part of.
And if we're accepted, then the HRC would be involved in the sort of mentoring of that student,
Right.
and that could turn out to have some very interesting research implications. So that's another way we could be involved going forward. Did you have a question?
Was that the PhD students over there at Stanford?
I believe so. It's been a couple weeks.
Rachel Wright?
It's like an internship program. It's a public policy internship.
Because I just sent you an email too that they're looking to do RFPs to study low-income housing, homelessness, and stuff like that. I just shot it over to you about a half hour ago because I realized.
I'm not that savvy at these things. But it is public policy students at Stanford that do community projects.
Right. Yeah, the same group, maybe a different project. Yeah, okay.
All right, is Commissioner Savage, do you have an update for us on your
subcommittee?
Remind us what your subcommittee's doing?
Well, our first priority right now is to rewrite the HRC brochure and distribute it to let the citizens know that if they have a problem, they can come to us, and just try to get a lot of promotion about the HRC out there, because a lot of people don't know we exist. In order to do that, I wanted to speak with the city attorney to find out exactly what we are capable of doing and helping and what we're not. I finally spoke to her just a few days ago, and it was a lengthy conversation. I got a lot of material. And now that I am armed with this new material, I will once again meet with the subcommittee, and we will proceed from there.
So that was Molly Stump, or was it one of her assistants? Okay, great. All right, wonderful. All right, so any other updates or comments on Commissioner Moore?
So my goal, mission is to try to see ways in which we can become more related to or more familiar with other, the county HRC and other human relations organizations. So I had the pleasure of meeting with Miriam Castaneda, who's on the county HRC, and she discussed with me different events that were coming up, which are many of the events that Minka and Amy tell us about. For example, that the movie and Congressman Honda and State of the County and things of that nature. Then she talked about how, from her perspective, at least in her experience, and she's had quite a bit of experience on the Mountain View as well as now on the county commission. Northern California has its own issues and its own interests, and they're vital in many ways. She was telling me, for example, that Sonoma has a significant amount of funding for what they do, and so she was saying that she believes that it would be valuable to try to see if we as commissions can get involved in a separate organization, which is the Northern California Human Relations Commission. And we talked about that for a while, because we have the CARO, the California Human Relations Organization, that's going to meet in April. I think it's April, I have it here, April 24th and 25th. So it would be a good idea to calendar that, and that'll be, I believe, in San Francisco. But then what she talked about, and what I want to bring up here to my colleagues and commissioners, is that you'll recall that when we were at the breakfast meeting, there was excitement over the movies, that we were going to try to see if we could collaborate on movies. So she expressed some disappointment that that we hadn't shown more passionate involvement in this, and I told her that for whatever reasons we couldn't. But she says that they've they've come to try to organize this, and so it would be movies on diversity and culturally related topics, and that so the question is, can we contribute to what she believes would be a cost of somewhere between $1,000 and $1,500 for this? And so then she started to inquire of me what I don't know, and I talked to Minka about, which is, do we have monies for funding events such as this?
I'm not.
And because anything would be of value, and ways in which to try to do this. And to be frank, I was more and more interested in this. I think it would be a wonderful way, among other things, to advertise to the community that we exist. If we had one of these movies, there would be a movie maybe in Mountain View, a movie in San Jose. They did this with justice issues about 5 years ago, and the documentaries they showed, I never was able to go to see them, but I still have it on my desk. They were fascinating. And so I think that it would be valuable. And so the other way to contribute, if not financially and monetarily, would be in kind. Is there a place here in Palo Alto that would find it, this is my sense of humor at work, in its heart, to let us use their, say, auditorium or facility? I think of no. Answer no?
Oh, that's not a problem.
No, it's not a problem.
When we co-sponsor an event, we have several theaters in Palo Alto and other locations that we can certainly offer if we co-sponsor an event with the county. So that's not a problem. As far as funding, as I explained to you, we have $1,500 a year that's assigned to each of the commissions. So the HRC is no different, and that pays for our retreat. That pays for when we specifically host a special event. If any of you want to go to a workshop that's HRC related and you asked us to help pay for it, it could be that they haven't sent out any information about the conference in San Francisco that could help defer your cost to go to that conference in San Francisco. So it's kind of in that realm of being able to sponsor. But there's definitely other things that you and the city could do to help host events and be a partner to the county.
And this all sounds a little reminiscent of several years ago we had Not in My Town movie all over town. And, and I think it was Lucy Stern that it was, do you recall that?
I think that was before my time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, it was just a few years ago.
Yeah.
They did it when the youth, it was a youth
right, it was
lens of the
my
town.
Yeah.
I remember seeing it. I think it was sponsored by a PTA council.
That could be.
It was sponsored by a group. I think city was involved.
Yeah, I think the HRC was involved as well. Yeah.
So.
But anyway, so it has been done. It can, and I'm sure it can be done again. Yeah.
On that note, I like to say, that I did go to that event at Santa Clara County HRC movie projection, and in fact, they asked some of the same questions that you related, and I thought it would be worthwhile. It took me an hour and a half to get there.
Yeah, that's the problem.
So,
where was it?
It was
San Jose.
January 30th.
Did you walk?
It was January 30th, but it was at commute hour. I want to support.
The issue is not it took me an hour and a half. The issue is more like, it's very discouraging for people from Palo Alto to go there. It's just not going to happen.
They don't like coming up here.
Yes.
So but I'm mentioning this because it could be a good idea to have events here for the north part of the county and let them continue to do their things in the southern part of the county.
I wanted to mention too, we had been interested in possibly hosting. Yeah, the film about the day workers from the Day Workers Center. We saw an excerpt of it here at the HRC, and there's some interest maybe with partnering with the Mountain View HRC, and we could easily show it somewhere, say Coverly Auditorium. We could invite experts on immigration law and people who work with undocumented workers and try to assist those families, and we could have a really interesting community panel discussion. But all of that we would need the people on that subcommittee to kind of decide that they want to do something like that, and then work with leadership and staff to pull that together. But that's an idea that would be a very low cost way to raise our profile and get some awareness around what we do, and also maybe invoke a really interesting community discussion as well. I know Stanford has put on some events like that, and I believe Laureen Jobs was one of the sponsors of a film they showed about the children of undocumented workers, and that got some traction at Stanford. So I think we could do similar things, but we've got to put our heads together, work with staff and schedule. And Minka had even mentioned we could advertise it in the Enjoy calendar, but again, or catalog rather, but again, we'd have to look at dates and we'd have to kind of get ourselves together and really get a plan going. So if those are of interest at all, reach out to me, reach out to Minka, and let's see if we can kind of
reach out. Will do. So
Do
that's
it.
what I was going to ask. The guidance here is just to keep
Right.
reaching out to the rest
I
of you.
think the last time this was brought up and the time frame that was suggested by the HRC just really wasn't sufficient to partner with the Mountain View HRC and just really wasn't sufficient to successfully plan an event.
Yeah, so maybe this is something we could look at for the late spring, early summer. Probably need a few months to get the space and the advertisement, but I think it's all very, very doable, even on our low budget status that we have. I think we could at least do something like that very, very cheaply.
Either in kind or also, I will come back later on and see if there's a small amount of symbolic funding that we could give them. Every single one of the HRCs who has these movies could contribute a small amount towards what they need. One more thought I want to add, and that is that the Human Relations Commission of the county has 3 different committees that they have on that are interesting, and one of them, is somewhat open to the public. And so I'm going to go and I was trying to do it last month. I'm going to try to do it this coming month. They meet every second Tuesday, and it's the 3 different commissions are basically equity. The topic is equity of some kind, and I was trying to find if I could find the topics here. But anyway, it sounds very interesting to me, and I'm going to go and sit in. And apparently, as a member of Santa Clara County, I might be actually able to collaborate. Oh yeah, Social Equity Committee, Justice Review Committee, and then there's an executive one that they have. But I thought those might be very interesting.
Well, thank you so much for being our liaison. Just so you know, Mayor Shepherd, Commissioner Moran had offered to do this because she's often down at the courthouse anyway, and because all the rest of us were too scared of the traffic to make it down to San Jose. So she's generously agreed to do that for us. So Commissioner Chen, do you have an update on your special project, which was?
So please turn around. I do 2 things.
Okay, there you go.
2 things.
So first, can you explain your special project for the benefit?
My special project is to study how new immigrants in the city, what they want to help them and how we can get them to help us. So build up a relationship with them. So the first thing, I spoke to Minka. Minka introduced me to, what is her title?
Senior librarian.
Yeah. It's called
Ruth Ann Garcia.
Ruth Ann Garcia. Sorry. She's from LA. Yeah, just moved here not long ago, a couple years ago. And then so I had a meeting with her and another technical administrator, what is her name? Diane Chu. And then we talk about how do we do that, how would approach this area. They were, and I suggest, they didn't say anything about it. They said, well, we have to find out how, what is HRC's doing. So I thought Ruth Ann is going to talk to Minka, but she hasn't done it yet. And so I suggest that we should use when the new library's been built, that we should use the facility to hold meetings, at different age group. Because I've been giving talks to the Wednesday morning Senior Friendship Day, and those are parents of working people, students in this area. And this is one population. And sometimes my topic, they don't listen to my topic that keenly because I talk about American history, and they're not interested. And then I talk about the cultures thing, and they're interested, independent. And I did talk about the city of Palo Alto, how the city is organized, and they're not interested. So I think that there must be a way to have different age group people. Like we need to get parents of youngsters, like those working people. They're not available on Wednesday mornings, but maybe on weekends. So the library, we had a special session for that age group. So I think, and they agree with it. They said they're going to expand quite a bit in different cultures, in the meetings, stuff like that. So I'm very pleased. And the second thing is that yesterday I went to Chinese New Year celebration party at the Cubby Theater. I was invited by, cannot spell her name, what is it?
Tang Nguyen.
Tang Nguyen. And then she invited me to go there, and I went there. Because I had to go to meet in San Francisco in the morning, so I got there around 11 o'clock and watched the two last program. It was pretty good. It was fantastic because all the audience were, there's no empty seat. I had to sit standing back. And then the performers, which is good. I saw the last two programs. One was this big chorus group by elderly group in Chinese people, and must be 50 people on stage. It's quite, they sang very well. And then the very last one, a dance group formed by 3 different groups. One I know is my friend Sandy Cho. She had a dance. She's a dance teacher. She had a group of people, and an exercise class. And they formed a major group. And there are 2, small groups. I don't know. I think she coached them, but not a regular group in the back. So the 3 groups. I think there must be 30 dancers on the stage in the different costumes. Beautiful. So I took a picture, but it didn't come out very well. And then they had lunch afterwards. I didn't stay for lunch because the line was so long. And they were in line, I'm so happy because I gave them a lecture saying you have to stand in line to do it. And they made it. So must be hundreds of people in line, so I left. So it was pretty, there was no parking space in the parking lot.
Wow.
It was pretty, every year it gets expanded.
Where was this?
Coverly. I think you were invited. Didn't they invite you?
You were in closed session. Fourth night meetings.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to mention that do we have the handout from Stephen Levy? Yes. And if you have a chance to read it, I glanced through it when it was emailed to me. One of the interesting observations he makes is that we have a very rapidly growing Chinese American population in Palo Alto, but the political representation of that demographic is very poor. Very, very poor. So what Commissioner Chen is working on now with outreach to the community is important in Palo Alto, because we really don't want that kind of imbalance where people are just not participating in the social and political level. So, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I want to. The work that you're trying to do right now is very similar to what Claudia is doing up in our city manager's office for our Palo Alto. We are trying to get deeply, deeply, deeply into the community to have them explain their experiences to us about Palo Alto so that we can use that in part of the actions that City Council is doing. So I think it would be sad to see you working on something that the city is also working on at a very high level. That it could be very supportive because we are trying to make inroads. Particularly, Larry's been very articulate about trying to make sure that we reach out to these groups that just don't show up. They don't show up at anything, but they show up to Chinese New Year's. And so we should have shown up there instead of gone into closed session. But we want to hear these stories, and we want to have them folded in. So Claudia should Claudia should come and work with you on that, I think. Because it's critical that we do this, and we have to do it fast because we need to get this information for a housing element and all kinds of things.
Yeah.
So.
Thank you, Mayor Shepherd, because Commissioner Chen's project kind of got orphaned, and she very generously agreed to take it on solo as a special project since we didn't really have the momentum around a subcommittee. So I think if there's a way for Commissioner Chen to partner with our Palo Alto, that might be a great way to really leverage what you've been working on instead of being this solo act that's just a one-woman.
It's already out there. We're asking people to give us their stories. Why did you move here? What drew you to here? When did you feel like Palo Alto belonged to you? And we're trying to come up with experiences too. Like we have the master plan for the Parks and Rec coming through. Let's go and have a picnic in the park. So we're trying to get the community to come out and to look at what we're doing so that we're not isolated making decisions. So at all levels, because
Well, I think this sounds like a great match for what Commissioner Chen's been working on our own initiative. And thank you, Minka. All right, well, let's move on to reports from officials. Do we have any?
Item number 5, Chair.
Oh, did I mess up?
Yes, you did.
Oh, I did.
I didn't say mess up, you said.
I did mess up, I'm sorry. I'm like, moving on. So our next item is that we need to select an HRC liaison to the CDBG. Two of them, to the CDBG Review Committee, and I think I had volunteered to be one of them.
Right, so this is year 2. So this is very light work. This is maybe spending an hour, a little more than an hour, looking at 5 applications for funding for CDBG for year 2. So, and then so that would be meeting probably with myself and Consuelo Hernandez, CDBG coordinator. So it's doing some reading and committing to this meeting, and she's looking to have that in late February. So she's been waiting for this date. So Sharon Ann has agreed to be one of those people. It does not have to be, I know some of you were involved in the CDBG HISRAP, so it could be the same person as last time, but it does not need to be. It really could be any commissioner who is interested in serving and doesn't have a conflict of interest.
I think Consuelo said when she needed 2, so I volunteered to be 1. Is there anyone who'd be willing to join me?
I'd be happy to do that.
Okay. All right, so Commissioner Moran. Thank you, Commissioner Moran. That was painless.
Unless someone else was, I mean, I don't want to push anybody else out here.
No, there's always an opportunity to do the whole shebang next year, so this is the light year. It'll be actually easier to do it this year. Okay, so are we good there, Minka?
Yes.
Can you let Consuelo know it's the 2 of us?
I shall.
Thank you so much. All right, now we can flip over. Do we have any commissioner reports? Commissioner Ezra?
Thank you. So I just want to let you know that my term is expiring at the end of next month.
April, actually.
April?
I was mistaken. The website is mistaken, but the clerk's office has told me April. So you have to stick in for 1 more month.
Okay, no, this is very good news. No, and I just wanted to share with you that I made a difficult decision. It took me a while to decide not to reapply. And I think you all know me very well. You know, it's not that I don't like the HRC. I love this work. I love working with this team. And I think, we've been doing some very interesting things together. It's more that, I've been for 6 years, 2 terms on the HRC, and after such a time, I think it's time to move on and do something different. And I still want to be involved with the city, beyond World Music Day and in public service. So I'm considering 2 possibilities. One that I'm seriously thinking about, I've not made a final decision by far, is to run for city council. It's a bit early in the process, so we still have time to see if I'll pursue that. And the other one is, if I decide not to do it, then I would probably reapply to a commission in the fall, but not the HRC. I would do something different. But I still like to be involved.
Run World Music Day?
Oh, World Music Day will continue. Maybe I can make a second announcement on that. Since this committee has been very involved with World Music Day and helped out and really helped us get started.
It's the 50 year of the British invasion, so I think you can have a theme too.
You got a Beatles cover band.
So, yeah, well, so the good news is that there'll be a 6th World Music Day on June 15, and but there'll be a bit of a change. I'm still involved, but the city has chipped in $5,000 to help hire an organizer, and the Palo Alto Recreation Foundation, to which I belong, is also putting some money. So we hired, we signed the contract, in fact, yesterday. We hired a contractor who has been working with the city for a long time and knows how to put this event together. So, and I'll be supervising her. So, it's not like I'm not involved. I'll be taking care of the website and still spending quite a bit of time. But at least, I think we're moving forward in the direction that I wanted to have this event become independent of the founder and continue, hopefully, for a long time, become more sustainable.
That's wonderful. We're really going to miss you on the HRC, but I'm glad we're forced to stay here 1 more month. Yes. So thank you for sharing that, and I hope everyone will also support World Music Day. I know I volunteered last year and really had a great time, so I'd encourage everybody to do so this year. Do we have some additional commissioner reports?
Yes.
Commissioner Becchetti? Oh, do you want to?
I wanted to say something a little bit more about Steve Neely's memo, because I asked that it be put in everybody's place. And my reason is because it's just full of a lot of interesting information that bears not just on our low-income housing, but on the whole nature of the community. And so I see this as kind of a resource document that you might give a good quality half hour or hour to read and know that you have it and refer to it from time to time. Steve has a way of making complicated things clear, and this is very clear about Palo Alto and its character and how it compares with some other towns, and I think we need to kind of know those sorts of things. And then I wanted to announce, unless I'm stepping on Commissioner Savage's toes, about this. Were you going to talk about this?
That was from staff. I think.
It's about the police.
I got this from the homeless task force.
Oh, then it's not something.
This is about
I thought it was the other thing.
the Downtown Streets Team, the Palo Alto Business and Professional Association, the Palo Alto Parking Committee, and the Palo Alto Police Department have been honored by MetLife Foundation Community Police Department Award for their extraordinary partnership to include community safety in Palo Alto. There were 540 applicants, and they gave 10 awards.
Wow.
Palo Alto, this
Wow.
combination of groups got one. They received $15,000
Oh,
to
that's wonderful.
advance joint public safety considerations. So since we're interested in the police department and a lot of other things, I thought this was a very nice recognition for what we all know are really some extraordinary groups in Palo Alto.
Actually, I got this from email. I joined this neighbors, Palo Alto neighbors, this website, email sources send me almost every day information update, including this piece of information.
Nobody's trying to keep this secret. I just wanted to make sure everybody had a chance to hear about it.
Are there some other commissioner reports?
Commissioner Stone and I.
You have to speak into the microphone.
Commissioner Stone and I yesterday went to the Mayfield Community Clinic, and it was eye-opening. It was moving, to tell you the truth. So, many of you, I'm sure, are already familiar with it. But one of the things that she said, just a couple of bullet points. One of them was that they're trying to include behavioral medical assistance too, the word for mental health assistance, and they're trying to use Skype and those kinds of videos in order to try to decrease their costs, because that way they can get doctors and clinicians who don't have to come to the clinic. And she said that they're getting a new increased the new people who are using it. There used to be more Russian American immigrants. Now apparently it's Middle Eastern and Asian American immigrants, and then she had some interesting things about costs. Clearly, she could was also asking more about how to get more costs. The city gives we give, I think, $16,000 or something like that.
Oh, and just so Mayor Shepherd knows, the she is Dr. Shamima Hassan, who is the CEO of the Mayview Clinic, rather,
and who was very welcoming. And so she discussed how Mountain View. That's what Commissioner Stone was just saying. Mountain View actually has come up with a clinic, the largest one of the three that they have that they use, and other tidbits of that nature. Would you like to add, Commissioner Stone, to this? But
no, you're doing a great job. But it was, very, very informational. We spoke with her for over an hour, and got to learn everything about the Palo Alto Clinic, the Sunnyvale Clinic, the Mountain View Clinic. And yes, like I was talking about earlier, the differences in how those cities and the county helps fund those clinics.
Very interesting. All right, any other reports? All right, if not,
Well,
then
I got one
go right ahead.
real quick. Especially since Mayor Shepherd's been on our fourth night meeting. I know you want to get home. The Project Safety Net we're continuing to really work on actual goals that we can start to work and achieve, and so we've got a nice list of actual goals and subcommittees that we're breaking up to in there. I joined one, and Mayor Shepherd, correct me if we're wrong on this, but I guess the City Council this year has taken off teen mental health as a priority, as a listed priority?
No, we 2010 we set our priorities. In 2010 we had collaboration for youth well-being as a priority, and we had it for 3 years. And priorities are defined as something that has specific attention during the year, unusual, a high level for staff, if, when staff comes across something, so that we could reintegrate our youth, connectivity. And goal priorities are not going to last for longer than 3 years. So last year, we have rolled that out. One of the things we're doing right now is trying to establish our core values as a city. So I'm imagining, and I'm hopeful, that we will have some element of that as an established core value for the city of Palo Alto, and that's also part of the Our Palo Alto. It's a subset of it, but we are trying to get that. So we have people from all over town going onto the city website, going to Beyond City Hall, and typing up what they think the core value should be. So that's how we're gathering that information. And once again, Claudia is in charge of that as well. And so we are trying to listen to the community so that we can come up with a concise statement about what our core values are, which would mean that it would never roll away. It would be kind of how we hire our staff, how we organize our our departments, all around the vision for, probably youth and family, that kind of thing. So it's whereas a priority is when we really have slept and we haven't done much with something.
Well, great. Then to amend that subcommittee, then I guess we'll be focusing on just putting our thoughts and studies forward into helping develop that. So that's a subcommittee that I'm on there, and then the rest we have been really focusing on just a myriad of issues related to teen mental health and what Project Safety Net deals with. So I think everybody there is really excited about where we're going and finally getting our feet on the ground and working towards it.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Stone. All right, I have a couple of updates myself. So the first is a more pleasant one. Today I was invited to a Valentine's tea by some of the children who participate in our Stepping Stones program, which is run by the Palo Alto Housing Corp and is one of our HISRAP grantees. The kids live in an affordable housing unit called the Arrastradero Park Apartments, which is right around the corner from where I live. The kids were incredible. They range in age from about 6 to 12. They planned their whole menu, made all the food except for one dessert themselves. They arranged games, including a scavenger hunt that I totally failed at because I could not find the eraser anywhere in the room. They served us tea and cookies and little sandwiches, all of which they'd made themselves. And it was part of Stepping Stone's commitment to not only helping with homework, but helping to teach kids organizational and leadership skills. So the onus was really upon this group of children to figure out how to entertain their neighbors, their parents, their siblings, their friends. And then they actually served us. So they all had to go into the kitchen and wash their hands and then come out with platters of food. And they were very, very solicitous going around the room, making sure everyone had tea and cookies and sandwiches and dessert. So it was lovely to see them. And the work that Stepping Stone is doing with these kids is really incredible. So it was nice to be able to see that firsthand. My second report, I've been a little unsure of, or not a little bit reluctant to bring to the HRC, but I did want to update you because I've made some progress on it, which is that last fall I had a very, very unpleasant experience with the Palo Alto Police Department. And basically a woman had accused me of hitting her car and then fleeing the scene. And I had a difficult time dealing with the police in that I didn't actually hit this woman's car, and I could not get the officers who responded to understand or believe that. So I was cleared by my insurance company, but there was a police report stating that I was a hit-and-run driver, which could have been used against me in a court of law. So I was not happy. I had no luck trying to get that report corrected or amended. I was threatened with prosecution and arrest, and it got very, very unpleasant. I ended up finally reaching out to Chief Dennis Burns directly, and he agreed to look at the case again. And I have now been completely cleared by the Palo Alto Police Department, and they've concluded I could not possibly have hit this car. But the things that happened to me in the course of trying to resolve this issue were very troubling to me on a lot of levels. Well, I thought if I were a private citizen, I would have done that, but it was actually a little bit of an experiment to me to see how does an average person who has an incident,
treated by the police. And I have to say my feelings are very mixed at this point. I'm very, very impressed with Chief Burns and the lieutenant who investigated, but very disappointed in the responding officers. I felt they were extremely heavy-handed, unwilling to listen, and frankly, determined to just find me guilty of something because that made life easier for them versus really getting at the truth. So I do have an amended police report now, but I also have a meeting scheduled with Dennis Burns and Lieutenant Dave Floor later on this month. And I had raised the issues with them that I'm not just concerned about what happened to me because I'm lucky. I have an insurance company. I speak English. I know my rights. I can get this figured out. But what if I were someone who did not have all those advantages? I would have been held responsible for an accident I didn't cause. I could have been taken to court. My license could have been suspended. It could be very, very ugly for other people in the community. And I want to make sure that anybody who has an altercation like this, gets a responding officer who is sensitive to the situation and who objectively looks at everything and doesn't just kind of, do a sloppy job on investigating and leave someone with a lot of liability on their doorstep. So I'll update you after I have that meeting, but I've been invited by the police to be more involved, and to give them more feedback and to go on a ride-along. And I have, so far in my tenure on the HRC, I haven't been very involved in police matters because we have some more veteran members who have been very experienced with that. But I think now, given what I went through both on the bad side and the good side, I think I'd like to know more about how our police department functions. So I may take on more of a role in that in the future. So anyway, thank you for letting me share that. So next item is, do we have a report? Oh, council buddy reports. Do we have anybody who has met with their buddy? Our buddy program is a little bit not going all that great, I think. But
I spoke briefly to my buddy the other night, and I don't even want to mention the name, but just in a most gracious way, it was communicated to me that said buddy is overwhelmed with and has very little time. And so I was thinking to myself, perhaps the best way to meet the buddy would be to go to events where the buddy would be, as opposed to trying to create, to carve into more time that they don't have.
That's a good point.
I have to say the commission, library has the same thing. They have a buddy system, and I have to say I don't know what to do with it. I am overwhelmed.
Yeah.
I'm completely overwhelmed.
Yeah, the way this was put is that there's no bandwidth left.
Yeah.
Well, Mayor Shepherd, just, you're my buddy now that you're, so we may just waive it at meetings. Yeah.
Come to
that may
strategic
happen.
meetings, or that would be a good time to go to retreat so that you can see what's going on. I'm kind of shocked that we haven't gotten the Palo Alto thing out to commissioners. That's really critical this year. And it's a big feature of retreat, and it's a big feature of State of the City address and everything. It's supposed to trickle out and have everybody kind of,
Well, we're grateful you brought it to our attention tonight, because I think there are some multiple ways we can participate in that.
It just shows me that it takes a while to get it to.
It does, to trickle down. Definitely.
Do I have anything? No.
Does anyone else have a buddy report? All right, Minka, you're
No,
next. Or council liaison report?
Yes, if you'd like to ask Mayor Shepherd if she has a.
Oh, I'm sorry, God, I'm just racing through
Oh,
this thing.
council liaison.
Well, I'm just right. I was thinking you're the council. I'm like not even. I'm sorry, my blood sugar's low. Mayor Shepherd, do you have a council liaison report? You are our new liaison. We're delighted to have you.
Well, what do you want to?
So that's if there's interesting items that are going on in the council that the HRC falls within the realm of the HRC that you'd like to bring to their attention. And you can pass this time.
Yeah, I think all I can tell you is that we have passed over 30 very important, critical fire hose work plan this year. And you should take a look at it. You should bring the work plan to HRC, let them see it. I know Coverly is coming up very soon on the 24th. We're taking Coverly up. I'm not sure if that's something that's an interest of HRC, but there's something in there for everybody.
I went to some of the Coverly meetings. They were really interesting.
Yeah, and we are now, we have to get that lease sealed, so it's going to go to open session now, so that should be fun. So there's a lot going on with trying to communicate out to the community this year, to try to have a community conversation. Mm-hmm. And I could see the HRC playing a pivotal role in that. When you talk about going to the libraries and having workshops, that's one of the things, we're all hoping Mitchell was open by now, but we want to do ABAG 101. We want to do Housing Element 101. They'll be driving that a little bit. just trying to, one of the things from Measure D that, and just from communications from the community to me, there's a huge gap between what we have to do as a council in order to govern the city with so many unfunded state mandates, the housing element being one of them, that people just think that we're off in our own high horse doing whatever we feel like doing. So we're trying to figure out how to communicate better and get the information out sort of in a 411 instead of a 911, if you want to use a police term. And there's plenty of opportunity to do that. And we were hoping to do one meeting a month, you know, but they also might pop up in different ways. So if you want to pick over anything in the Our Palo Alto, it starts with ideas so that we can get all the ideas out, and then it goes to action. And there's 30 different items that we're going to be acting on, and we've already started. And we're going to be going through that like a Mack truck, to tell you the truth, because it's all from the creek flooding to everything. That it's all live this year. It'll trickle into next year as well, but it's all live. So we need help with that. And then it goes into design, where we build a vision for our future.
Okay, so is there an Our Palo Alto summary or report that Minka can get and distribute to us?
I'll work on that. Okay.
And that is, how big is the work plan?
30, over 30 items.
How many pages is what I'm asking? Is it possible to
It's one
send
page.
That? One page?
I can get that to you as well.
Thank you so much.
All right, and
They're
now.
all multi-dimensional.
All right, and now, Minka, do you have a staff liaison report?
The only things would be, once again, to bring the San Francisco conference for the Northern California Human Relations Organizations. I have not received any more information. I was on a conference call for that, but have not received any more details or any registration forms. When those come, I will forward those on to you. And that the local HRC breakfast, which I passed on to you, is April 8th in Mountain View. So those are the two additional things, and when that information comes out, I will forward that to you as well.
Okay, and Minka, when we find out more about the meeting of is it Cairo or Caro?
It's however you want to say, Caro.
So that is the California
Association of Human Relations.
So it's the big one, and it usually meets in SoCal. So we're lucky that this year it's in San Francisco, and we do have possibly the ability to pay the conference fees out of our HRC budget. So if people are interested in going, you know, really think about that, and don't let cost be an inhibiting factor. Maybe a group of us could carpool if that's.
They're working on some pretty incredible speakers.
Yeah, it's a good opportunity. As I've never made it down to. It's in April 24th.
4th and 25th in San Francisco.
Okay.
You know what days those are?
24th and 25th of April.
Like day of the
I
week?
think it's a Wednesday, Thursday, or Thursday, Friday.
Okay.
Yeah, because I've always wanted to go and I never make it to LA, so this could really be our year.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. See, the low-tech way is always the best way. All right. All right, so we have a call for agenda items for next time. We need to put the leadership, election of new leadership.
When do we have to wait to be new members?
Well, no, I think that given this, the HRC decided that it was best to do it while you had the current.
Okay.
Commissioner, like Clark, before he leaves, because then if the next commissioner comes on, they don't know everything.
Okay, so new leadership, we need to bring back just that quick vote on the mediators.
Mediators, yeah.
I think that's when, I believe Consuelo Hernandez wanted to come to talk about the micro finance grants that CDBG is doing.
And we'll need another speaker for our learning series.
Right. After 10 speakers.
I know. Well, let's see if there's anything else we want to.
Is it possible? Is it possible to have Claudia?
That wouldn't be as part of the housing series, but I could definitely look into seeing if Claudia could come and work with her on her time frame.
Any other call for agenda items? All right, well, I think then we are adjourned. Thank you all so much, and thank you very much, Mayor Shepherd, for joining us.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, we're doing our-